Greetings, everyone. My name is Brady Witten, and this is The Word Meets the World for December 1st, 2021. So the trials of Kyle Rittenhouse, the men who killed Ahmaud Arbery, and Ghislaine Maxwell have been in the news recently, and once again, there is no shortage of opinions about these cases and verdicts. In the Rittenhouse case, one side sees the verdict as a complete miscarriage of justice that confirms white privilege in our legal systems, and the other side sees the verdict as a victory for individual liberty and confirmation of how biased the mainstream media is. But what does the Bible have to say about all this? What does the Bible tell us about trials and justice? That's our topic for this week's Word Meets the World. So what does the Bible have to say about trials and justice? So the Cambridge English Dictionary defines justice as the condition of being morally correct or fair. And one thing the Bible makes abundantly clear is that God is a perfectly just being. So in the book of Psalms, it talks quite often about God's righteousness, God's justice. And Psalm 89:14 says this: "Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Steadfast love and faithfulness go before you." So it shouldn't surprise us that one of the things we see God doing throughout the scriptures is guiding people towards things that are morally correct and fair. This is why God gave Moses so many laws like the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. All of these laws are intended to point us towards what is good and just. The laws also reinforce certain things about the character and nature of God. Above all, that God cares about human beings, cares about how we treat one another, and cares about what is right. So along with specific laws, the Bible also offers instruction about how human judges should conduct their affairs. So in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, we read this. This is the 18th verse. "You shall appoint judges and officials throughout your tribes in all your towns that the Lord God is giving you, and they shall render just decisions for the people. You must not distort justice. You must not show partiality. You must not accept bribes, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right." And verse 20 says this: "Justice and only justice you shall pursue, so that you may live and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you." So multiple times the Bible also insists that in matters of justice there must be no bias based on a person's status. So the book of Leviticus 19:15 says this: "You shall not render an unjust judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great. With justice you shall judge your neighbor." So the rich and poor, according to the Bible, are to receive equal treatment. Justice is supposed to be blind. But I think we all recognize when we pay attention to the news and the stories we hear around us that justice is not always blind. A documentary on Netflix called Time, the Khalif Browder story, tells the story of a time when justice was not at all just. So Browder was 16 years old in 2010 when he was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. And unable to come up with $3,000 in bail, he was held in custody. And to make a long story short, he was held on Rikers Island in New York for a period of 3 years. And all of this without a trial. So again, this is a clear place where justice was not at all just. And if you compare Browder's story to a person like Kyle Rittenhouse, whose $2 million bail was easily paid by his supporters and whose mother raised nearly $500,000 for his legal defense, you can see this question of, is justice what's happening? Or compare Browder to Ghislaine Maxwell, who has hired multimillionaire attorney Bobby Sternheim to lead her defense. Micah 7:3 says that the powerful dictate what they desire, and thus they pervert justice. So is all of this fair? Is this just? According to the prophets, this type of injustice is detestable to God. The prophet Isaiah says this. This is Isaiah 1, verse 15 and following. When you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice. Rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow. So, recognizing that justice does not always take place in this world, what are you and I to do? I think the first thing the Bible tells us to do is that we should live just lives ourselves. Again, the prophet Micah in chapter 6, verse 8 says this, He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. So each of us needs to examine our lives and ask ourselves, are we being honest? Are we being just? Are we being fair in our dealing with others? A growing concern that I have in our culture, especially in the world of social media, is how comfortable people have become in spreading false information about other people. This is in the Ten Commandments, by the way, that we shouldn't bear false witness. It's not just about lying, it's about telling untruths about other people that really can affect their future. Exodus 23:1 says, You shall not spread a false report. You shall not join hands with the wicked to act as a malicious witness. And I would just remind all of us that for those of us who call ourselves children of God, for those of us who call ourselves Christian, we should take great care to be people of honesty and truth. It matters. The second thing I think we need to do is this. As the Khalif Browder story reveals, in the U.S., it's often people of color and the poor who suffer the greatest injustices. Money and power really can buy better justice. And so the Bible calls us to pay special attention to the rights of the poor and the needy. Proverbs 31:8-9 says, Speak out for those who cannot speak, for the rights of all the destitute. Speak out, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. So when you see injustice taking place in the world around you, do you speak up? Do you vote for laws that will protect the poor and the needy? We need to remember, as Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And perhaps more importantly, we need to remember the words of Elie Wiesel, who said, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor and never the victim. And the third thing I think that we need to do is to live with the expectation that God's justice will ultimately prevail. Psalm 96:13 says, He is coming. He is coming to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the people with His truth. So recognizing that justice does not always prevail in this lifetime, and it doesn't, the Hebrew prophets foresaw a time when all would be made right. A time when, in the words of the prophet Amos, justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. And as Christians, we look forward to that time. And I got to tell you that when it comes to God's judgment, I know a lot of people get kind of nervous and scared about it, but I think who better to finally judge everything than our good and loving God who knows the truth and knows it absolutely. And I'm more and more convinced that one of the most important things we must do is never lose hope that one day a good and just God will have the final say. So let's go back to Kyle Rittenhouse, Ahmaud Arbery, and Ghislaine Maxwell for a moment. What are we to make of these cases? So justice ultimately is about right making. And where justice is done, we should be glad. Where it's not done, however, you and I have our work to do. Let us live just lives ourselves. Let us speak up and work for the rights of the poor and the oppressed. And let us live with hope and expectation that one day God will have God's way and justice and righteousness will prevail. So what do you think about all this? I want to leave some questions for you to maybe think about yourself or maybe discuss with others. Before I do want to encourage you to like and to share this video. Help us get word out about these studies. And also like, subscribe, and follow First Methodist on whatever social media platform you're on. See you next time, everyone.